Okay. Well, hello everybody. It's Brian. Breaking down security, Bricksec Education. Sorry I haven't been on as often as I have. Gotta be honest. The drag of having to search for jobs all day is kind of um, it takes a toll, and so doing what I can to just kind of take care of me. And after it's not that I'm not getting interviews. It's just sometimes the day gets draining, or if I have a couple of interviews, the day is I'm just tired, right? Because you got to be on for that kind of thing, and it takes a lot of energy. So appreciate y'all if you're here. Thank you for joining me as we continue on through this. Just literally as the countdown was going on, I saw an email report, or not an email report, but a report about email about Cisco. If you are using the Cisco Secure Email and Web Manager, literally at 1600 GMT, which is 4 o'clock, so it's a few hours, but Cisco became aware of a new cyber attack campaign targeting a limited subset of appliances with certain ports open to the internet. Let me share the browser. Wrong browser. Scroll. There we go. Okay. I have other stuff over there for that one, but so Cisco became aware of a cyber attack targeting a limited subset of appliances with certain ports open to the internet that are running Cisco Async OS software for Cisco Secure Email Gateway and Secure Email and Web Manager. So the attack allows a threat actor to execute arbitrary commands with root privileges. Whoa. On the underlying operating system of an affected appliance. So there is no patch right now. What did Gossi say? Gossi said, yeah, they recommend nuking boxes and reinstalling from scratch if you opened the spam quarantine port to the internet and closing the port. So if you have these ports open to the internet, for whatever reason, right? They suggest that you basically blow those boxes away and reinstall from scratch, and not open those ports to the internet. Now, they say it's unclear how long boxes have been backdoored for. So it sounds like what happens is there's something running on those ports that allows you to inject commands or to run commands as root, obviously. The ports aren't, according to Gossi, the ports aren't scanned by Shodan, so scope isn't yet known. If they haven't been scanned by Shodan as of this Mastodon toot, or whatever the hell they call those things now, somebody's already done that, right? So let me see, there's some, your admins may know the product as Iron Port. Oh, so there you go. If you have Iron Port, maybe that also is a thing. Gray Noise might want to have a look at ports 60, 25, 70, 25, 82, and 83 for anomalies. I think Cisco likely needs to pivot on being more open about this one as soon as possible. They need to openly provide indicators of compromise, oldest known time of backdoor installation, and ports used during exploitation. At the minute, they've got bare minimum in here, and I really don't want to write a blog and use it. Oh my goodness. IOCs, which probably should be linked on the support page. Whoa, good lord. Okay, that's in geezer font there. So Cisco Talos, which is their threat intel organization at Cisco, they have a campaign targeting Async OS, formerly known as Cisco Email Security Appliance. They assess moderate confidence that the adversary tracked as UAT 9686, Chinese Nexus Advanced Persistent Threat Actor, whose tool use and infrastructure are consistent with other threat groups. Their persistence mechanism is known as Aqua Shell. It's accompanied by additional tooling meant to reverse tunnel and purge logs. Okay, purging logs to hide your persistence. Reverse tunneling would be setting up a persistence as well, being able to send tunnels back out in case the tunnel going in gets blocked or lost in whatever way, shape, or form. Like if you close the ports, but you don't nuke the box and start over. So if the box is already compromised, closing those ports is great, but because there's a reverse tunneling in place, at some point in the box itself, the box will wake up that process, the Aqua shell, and a tunnel will lead back to a command and control server with the idea that, yes, you've closed the ports and they're all good, but you're probably already owned, right? So just a thought there. Yes, Aqua Shell is a lightweight backdoor embedded into an existing file on a Python-based web server. Backdoor is capable of receiving encoded commands and executing them in system shell. Listens passively for unauthenticated HTTP post requests containing specially crafted data. Aqua Shell delivered as an encoded data blob, decoded and ultimately placed in data web EUQ web UI htdocs index.py. Index.py. You would index.py, that's an interesting name for file in the htdocs directory. I guess that would be some kind of web, hopefully it's not Java based, but it's Python-based web server, but whatever the web server is using for serving pages, this is hiding in that directory. Result of decoding the blob is the Python code constitutes the Aqua Shell backdoor. Aqua Shell parses the HTTP post request, decodes it using a combination custom algorithm and base64 decoding, executes the commands on the appliance. Okay, so it decodes the base64 value. It says do the thing, the Python script does the thing, or what have you. Very interesting. Okay. Removes lines containing keywords from log file specified. Huh. Interesting. So it will remove file commands that doesn't contain keywords and simply commits them to log files. I would imagine that log files should be, what do we call that? I don't want to say immutable, but they should be, read-only. You shouldn't be able to write to your log files. Wait, okay, my bad. Certain users or certain services should be able to write to the log files. I guess because everything runs as root through those through those open ports, that you can do whatever you like in this case. So that kind of sucks. Temp package file, temp bender. So you're gonna, that's it's a compiled Golang ELF library or binary based on the open source reverse SSH backdoor. Going down some. Okay, so reverse SSH is forked and is being used in Hack the Box challenge. So Hack the Box CTFs are similar. Has been useful in the Hack the Box challenges. So we yet see another good tool being used for bad things, right? Or a tool being used for bad things. I don't know if it's a good tool or not. Who hasn't accidentally closed a reverse shell with a keyboard interrupt due to muscle memory? Besides their fragility, such shells are also missing convenience features such as fully interactive access, tab completion, or history. Instead, you go the way of simply deploying a lightweight SSH server, reverse SSH onto a target, and use additional commodities such as file transfer or port forwarding. There you go. So they're using this, some of or all of this functionality to create reverse, bind, or reverse shells. Bind or reverse shells, and reverse shells. And it works across Windows and Unix. Great. Anywho. Chisel's an open source tunneling tool over TCP UDP tunnels with an HTTP based connection. So I guess I don't know where this sits in your environment. It would be nice if you could see the egress going out at some point and going, why is this server making connections itself? It could be that the function of the email gateway is one where it would normally make connections out. So you would have to, that would be something that, you would maybe have to monitor in some cases. Maybe looking for connections not on an outbound port that would be noticeable. Maybe the fact that it's going over an HTTP-based port, it's going over port 80 or 443. So you'd want to, review those. IOCs can be found in the GitHub repo here. So they have a GitHub repo for this. Cisco Talos IOCs. Oh, well, there you go. You can get all of the IOCs going back as far back as you want. Target Ukraine, JSON. Okay, so yeah, this is in 2025, obviously. Yeah, UAT 8696 text files. So here are the checksums for Aqua Tunnel, Aqua Purge, Chisel, and the IP addresses for those. So blocking IP address ranges or IP addresses is good. Using those checksums is important. So make sure you keep track of those. Your JSON files are probably formatted similarly. Yeah, there you go. You can see there's a little bit more in the JSON file load. So yep. Log Talos intelligence. So yeah, you might use that JSON file and incorporate it into your tooling. But this is also a good site if you're just wanting IOCs for various things. So looks like they break them down by Velociraptor leveraged in ransomware attacks, for example, or Kraken ransomware. Sorry. Yeah, so this happened like, well, I found this just as we were going to stream. So that, there's a good number of things going on here. If anybody's interested, this group jumped to residential proxies, to Tor exit nodes, to Linode, to Vulture, to Cowpoo, whatever the fuck that is. You can follow along with Gossi on his Mastodon instance on what's it, cyberplace.social. Okay, cool. I really wish I could use Mastodon more because there is some good folks like Kevin Gossi that are doing this kind of stuff. But I, yes, Earthshine, this is going to be a real oh shit morning for a lot of admins. Sir Humphrey Appleby's School of Naming strikes again. Put the difficult bit in the title. It does less damage than it does in the text. Yeah. Secure email gateway, secure email web manager. Yeah. Oh. Iron port. No, that's a... Oh my god. Iron port exposed on the internet? Why? If your shit is that old, surely you have an ASA that offers tribute. These old iron port filters were so slow and underpowered. When 1.3 came out, the internet started to disappear a little more every month until we had to bypass them. Yeah, if you're, I don't know how old the secure email client is. I didn't have a lot of, knowledge of those or working with those, but if you're still using secure email gateways or secure, what do we call those? Secure web email and web managers. Okay, so if you're still using those, then maybe you have other problems. But just know they are getting owned up, and you might want to take a look at those that are sitting in the corner to see if maybe they need a refresh or an update there. So let me post up the Talos page for Talos Intelligence here. I keep checking their website, the Talos folks, to see if they're hiring, because it seems like they're a good organization. They do a lot of good work, and I would love to make some kind of impact like that, and work with the teams there for those. So. Oh, the IOCs were at the bottom of the Talos blog post as well. So, recommendations for Cisco customers are available here. If your organization does find connections to the provided actor indicators of compromise, please open a case with Cisco TAC. So, yeah, I imagine the tunneling is going to be persistent, right? So you're going to see those connections. It's not going to be like, oh, I'm making a connection, I'm done. I'm making a connection, I'm done. Or if you're just looking at the logs and it's like, oh, yeah, I'm making a connection. If you see your servers making connections out to those IP addresses, you'll want to take a look at those as well. My guess is tunneling is going to be somewhat persistent. I can imagine. Unless there's some kind of instructions set up to only do it for certain times a day or whatever. But yeah, checking your logs, you're going to see those IP addresses regardless if it's persistent or not. The tunnel, I mean, back between. Um, what is the guidance? I know Gossi said that, but are they really saying, blow stuff up and start over? Let me see. The appliance must be. Also, if you're not using the spam quarantine feature, then you may not be vulnerable, depending on when that was turned off. If you turned it off last week, maybe you should double check. But if you've never had it on, you're probably okay. This is. I want to get on my soapbox a little bit here. The React for shell or React 2 shell came out, I don't know, on the 8th, 9th last week-ish timeframe. People freaked out. I can imagine at my old job, that was a problem. Like, that was a major issue because we used a lot of stuff there, just plain and simple. It's not like, that's their stack. I'm showing you. It's a big company. People use a lot of that stuff. There wasn't a lot of guidance as far as I could tell, other than just patch the thing, right? And it sounds nice. I mean, I've spent 15 years with, here's a vulnerability, just patch, right? And as I got more pragmatic about working in a big business with, other deadlines and timelines, and your crisis is not my crisis, you start trying to find workarounds or ways to mitigate damage or to shore up the particular problem in such a way so that you can continue working while you're solving this problem in a holistic manner or something like that. So what did we have? And I think it was, yeah. So this is what happens when all of a sudden, we're going to push out a patch real quick because it's Terabad and we need to have this fixed. The React team pushed out an initial patch. Hey, patch all your things. If you're using 9.1. Whatever, you're good to go because you can patch this thing. Well, they didn't actually fix everything, right? About a couple days later, they issued yet another fix for a denial of service condition that wasn't addressed in the original patch. And so now you have a different kind of issue. Maybe denial of service isn't a big deal for your organization, but you have a patch that is supposedly fixing all the things, right? And then for whatever reason, they didn't test enough or they didn't think about that scenario. And now you're having to follow up with yet another bug. If denial of service is a problem for you, you may have had to run incident response fairly heavily for React in the last couple of days. And as many people mentioned, you can't always just patch, right? Especially if it's a high availability or always on, or your environment is not such that you can just move to a major new version of React in this case. I think 6779 was the new hotness, but yeah, it has the same CVSS score as the original 55184 because it was an incomplete fix of that has the same impact. So you're dealing with a lot of React in the last couple of days because of a faulty patch, and that's just what you have to deal with, right? Pre-authentication denial of service vulnerability arising from a unsafe serialization of payloads and HTTP requests to the server function endpoints, triggering an infinite loop that hangs the server process and may prevent future HTTP requests from being served. So that's a denial of service. The patch that they issued didn't do everything, didn't fix everything. So they had to issue yet another CVSS 7.5 CVE with yet another patch. So I think we've seen that with a couple of things where it was like they patched it, but it didn't actually patch all the things, or it left you open to another attack in a different way. And I know that we need to be quick to respond to vulnerabilities of a nature like these. But when we have nothing to go on, and the only solution that we have is, well, we got to patch the thing. It's a rough workflow, right? You know, if you come to a product, a team, an engineering team or development team, or you know the SREs who are handling you know whatever it is they are doing, and there's some patching involved, and you say, hey, there's a React bug. We're using React. We're using a vulnerable version of that, and you know we need to update to this latest patch. And they're like, okay, great. We can't do that right now because of reasons. What's the backup? There's there is no backup. Um, you know, because of how things like this get published, there's very little information to go on, or you know, oh, information is still going on as you know as it happens. So you have to lean on detection methods. You have to lean on open source intelligence that may be of a dubious nature. I mean, just like Gossi right here, I found out of that vulnerability from Gossi. You know, maybe this showed up as a KEV issue or whatever, but um, and actually it says December 10th, but they first published this like literally today. So they've been, you know, they had to spend several days. Cisco themselves had to spend several days to find IOCs, to find you know, to keep this, I would say, somewhat quiet because they didn't want to tip anybody's hand. They wanted to make sure that they could come with as much information as possible to fix the issue. Now, see, Microsoft is still updating this blog as of 2 days ago. Like, so they were still you know, talking about how to defend against this vulnerability. Um, Obviously, you learn more as you're going along. This has a CVSS of 10. The follow-on patches had a 7.5, but there were at least 3 other patches that I saw there for that. Okay, I already got that one. I don't need that. There we go. But yeah, it's just interesting to see that. Yeah, so okay, so 55.182 was the original React to shell. This is the three follow-on vulnerabilities here, where you have 55.184 and then 67.779, 67.779, yes, which was an incomplete fix for the second patch or the second issue that came out there. So there's really like original bad thing, second bad thing, third bad thing. The sequels were less bad. Um, but yeah, it's just rough because we don't have a lot to go on in information security. And I think a lot of people, I don't want to say a lot of people forget that, but um, when we're having to make decisions based on incomplete data, and the only option is patch all the things because we trust that the React folks will patch those things effectively. You know, that is the easiest and most straightforward way of addressing an issue, right? Um, unless you have the wherewithal to be able to go in and look at, you know, every you know line in React and understand where the vulnerability is or where the vulnerability could occur, but you don't get that information immediately. Um, and so yeah, it is rough. It is definitely rough to understand from a vulnerability management point of view, and you don't want to be that you know wolf because we just as we've seen follow-on patches that didn't you know because they had to fix things that came up from the original patch, you get other things that end up being a nothing burger, like oh CVSS 10 patch, and it's like oh we got this thing, we don't use that in our environment. Oh, okay, that's a good thing. Um, Knowledge goes both ways. We need to have understanding what's inside of our network, and maybe keep a cool head. You know, not everything needs to be an incident response immediately. Take a tap. You know, take a breath before, and maybe wait for the story to be a bit more fully formed before we start responding to these things. Anyway, yeah. So if you, oh yeah, let me pop this in here too. So this is the original report. There we go. So yeah, you're still using Iron Port or secure email gateways. Um, Sorry, I'm so late in the day getting to you to let you know. Hopefully, you already have signed up for security notifications through Cisco. I would suggest, yeah, anybody who does vulnerability management or incident response or anything, absolutely sign up for as many of these vendor security bulletins as you can get. And you may not have access always to the super secret portal. There's always open wall, and there's always certain people that one of the reasons I got on Twitter was because of the open source intelligence or being able to find out patches or things like what Gossi has talked about here. This was perfect Twitter fodder, right, back in the day. And because of the death of Twitter as it was, you're not, you know, you're now having to subscribe to a dozen different places to find the same kind of content. So it really kind of sucks. But a couple of Linode instances for those IP addresses and some kind of Kaipu Cloud HK Limited. So apparently Kaipu Cloud is some sort of cloud provider in Hong Kong. Yeah. Oh, that's Cyber Willy Wave. So A9686 was also targeting ASAs a couple of months ago. That's good to know. It's good to know. Anyway, um, anybody have any thoughts? Anybody similarly affected by that issue? Been talking a lot more than normal today because of my interviews and stuff. One was a job interview. The other one was me talking to a friend of mine that I haven't talked to in, well, not face to face, but for like, I don't know, 4 years. Um, he's been lucky enough to create a tool that he is seeking a Series A round of funding for. So um, it's interesting the opportunities that come up for you when you are unemployed. Because I've taken over doing improv now. When somebody wants to reach out to me and say, hey, do you want to talk about this thing? I was like, yes, and so we were talking about having him come on with his other founders at the first of the year onto the stream, onto the show here to talk about their tool. Of course, it's has to do with AI, obviously, because that's the new hotness. But it looks like an interesting tool, and he and I were talking for the 30 minutes that I got on his calendar about different ways that this could be used, training and education, and other facets of the environment, and it's quite interesting. So I'm hoping that we will get some time after the first of the year to chat with him about that. So um, let me see what else. Me, yes, Aqua Tunnel in browser. Oh, the company I interviewed for, the one thing that made me happy was they were like, yeah, we're mostly a Mac shop and we're mostly a Google Docs and Slack and Google Meet, which yeah, I'm okay with Google Meet. It doesn't suck. It could be Chime or something like that. uh, um, yeah, so being a Mac shop is great for me. I actually just saw in the news that Microsoft Office is about to go up in price. So for like a yearly seat for Microsoft Office is going to go up roughly 15 to 17% from what it used to be. So if it's like $100, it'll be $117 per seat, which depending on who you talk to and which organization that is, people are leaving Microsoft in droves because of the thoughts and ideas that it's going to become an AI operating system. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's interesting to see that occurring. There were some things that they were wanting to add in Windows 11 that some people weren't happy with, like the rewind function or whatever it was. Um, yeah, they want to make money with what they've done and what they've invested, so I can understand why they're doing that. And there's just some people that are not ready for that kind of adoption. There's some folks that are like, yes, let's head forward. And so we'll see what happens. It'll be, oh, Mastodon changed their icon here. Okay, I see. Um, there's some folks that will take those risks and want those risks and want to be on the cutting edge of that stuff. There'll be other organizations that'll want to be a little more traditional or maybe not, bleeding edge first adopters. If they weren't the people that would stand in line for 12 hours for a new iPhone every year, then maybe they wanted to slow it down with AI stuff, because maybe they don't know what they want to do with it and they want to do it in a responsible way. Everybody moves at a different pace or speed. So, where is it? Where's the thing that I was doing? Oh, no. Oh, I will say, if you're looking for a job, hiring.cafe. Um, I have I have been trying to expand, with Google Dorking or there you go. I've had good use of working with different job boards, not just LinkedIn, because LinkedIn has its own scraping that it does. Other job boards like Lenza scrapes LinkedIn, and probably scrapes a good number of places, but it's really kind of hit or miss. Or you can often go to the company that they're advertising on, Lenza or Hiring Cafe or LinkedIn, and use their own job board through Ashby or Greenhouse or the Workday, and apply for the jobs there. I have tried to not use an intermediary to apply for those jobs. Um, yeah, because I've had mixed results, either not being told or, like most things, the jobs are stale on the hiring board, and when you go to the actual company's job board, it doesn't exist anymore. So that means you're wasting time applying for a job that no longer exists or is no longer being advertised in that way. So where does that data go, right? You're wasting time and effort doing that. So try to, that's one reason why I always try to go to a company's site and look at their careers page. They're always using Ashby, or they're always using Workday, or they're always using Greenhouse, or they're always using something like that, because they rarely have anything in house, unless it's like an Oracle or an IBM or something where they have built their own ATS from scratch for whatever reason. Levels.fyi is another one. They have jobs, a job board you can do searches on. You can do by keyword, you can do it by location, all the major countries in the world, by title, by level, compensation, if you can make that happen, remote, hybrid, or fully remote. Just be aware, sometimes when they say fully remote, they mean remote in the city that they want you to be hybrid in. I've seen a lot of that shit where it's like remote in New York City, and I'm like, yeah, that's not remote. Just that's hybrid / we're about to tell you to come back to work for 5 days a week. So suck it up, Chuck. So yeah, which kind of sucks, because when those kinds of jobs, that at some point they're going to force you to go back into the office. I've actually been looking in San Diego jobs. There's several companies that I've applied to in the San Diego area. I don't mind a commute if it's not too terribly bad. A lot of the companies I'm looking at are actually about 20 to 25 minutes away from me by car, which isn't bad, considering when I was in Seattle, the place that I was going to have to work would have been 45 minutes in one direction. Yeah, Seattle traffic has just got awful, and working in South Lake Union is a freaking nightmare. So it is what it is. But levels.fyi, levels I thought used to be like, how you can tell if you're getting a good, what the, sorry, not level.fyi, levels.fyi. Used to be a place where you could go and, figure out how much you should get paid for a particular position, or sake, man. Levels.fyi. There you go. Sorry, everybody. I type horribly. I type horribly. Um, but yeah, there's several positions out there. Some say fully remote. I end up having to look at the actual job first like, oh, some of the companies are actually getting better at putting how much they're willing to pay, at least pay ranges on these things. It says fully remote, but sometimes you need to go down here and look at the job and look and see if, you know, or when you apply, they'll be like, can you commit to 3 days of work a week and work at work? And it's like, okay, yeah, you're remote, but you're not really remote. I don't even know who Nebius is. What the fuck is this? Token factory inference? What's going on here? In this role definition, it's factory inference capabilities, highly scalable production grade machine learning systems. Oh, okay. This includes working closely with engineering and research teams to design and optimize real-time and batch inference workflows, support customer POCs, and translating technical challenges. Okay. I don't know what that is, so I probably would not be a good fit for that job. I don't always look at I don't always look at that, the pay immediately. I do like to go down and scroll because sometimes they'll get you in the fine print, like, hey, we're remote, but we really want you to come into the office 3 days a week in, New York, which can't move. So it is what it is. And then sometimes other sites will have like, if Nebius has these nearest competitors. LinkedIn does actually a pretty decent job with that, where it's like, hey, let me see. Yeah, this one here. It's full time. It's not remote. It's in San Francisco, which is another thing that irks me. But they'll have like, yeah, like, competitors. So if you see this job and it's not something for you, you can go, oh, okay, I'll go and look at a job at AWS or Google or something like that, or like Cribble. Cribble. Let me see, what do they got here? They always have competitors down at the bottom. So Cribble, Datadog would be a competitor of them, or Sumo Logic or Splunk. So if Cribble's not hiring for what you want, maybe you can go over here to Sumo and see what kind of jobs they might have available. So they're looking for a security compliance analyst, a couple of them, as a matter of fact, and they have 60 jobs available. So you can go and look and see what they have available: product designers, machine learning engineers, machine learning engineer one in this case, talent pipeline. So if you're a recruiter, there you go. You can go and do that. So this is my job. This is what I've been doing for the last month, making these connections. I don't always start with LinkedIn, but sometimes it's a good place to start because I have LinkedIn Premium, and sometimes it tells you if your match is good, so you can go here and look at your details for like reviewing your profiles and skills, and it will tell you, hey, you match 4 or 4, like of the required requirements. So in this case, it says I might actually be a good fit for a security compliance analyst, and then I matched 4 of the 7 at the bottom here. So for those of us who suffer from, I don't know, imposter syndrome or something, I find this tool was a good starting place for some jobs, because it's like, I am of the opinion that if I don't hit all of the bullet points, then I'm not good for the job, right? So this kind of gives me kind of a push, to hey, if you fit roughly 60%, and that's what you hear, 60% of the bullet points or what have you, give it a shot, right? Or if it's something that may seem to be a nice to have or whatever, then do that. But I can tell you right now, I got my CISSP and I got my bachelor's because 15 years ago, I was in that position where it was like, if I didn't hit all the bullets, I wouldn't sign up for it. So if I didn't have a bachelor's in computer science, I wouldn't apply to the job, because I was like, and are they even going to look at me because I don't have a bachelor's in computer science or computer security or related discipline? Getting my CISP was good because the company I worked for was helpful for that. Incident response experience, yes. Managing penetration testing teams, yes. Internal scanning, remediation of findings, sure. Experience with sales teams. I have worked with sales teams, but sometimes your resume and your LinkedIn profiles don't always match up 100%. Experience in public cloud. I have worked a little bit in public cloud environments. So, I might apply to this one if it wasn't a, let me see, where's the job located? They might actually be pretty good. This might actually be something I could apply to, because 150 is a little on the low side for me, sadly, because um, but I could do 150. 110 would be that would be lower than what I was making 3 jobs ago, so I would have to figure that out. But um, a lot of times when you go and look at this, they actually what is on LinkedIn is not going to be what's on here. I had a post on LinkedIn where they were showing that um, the requirements. Let me see. Okay, varies. Okay, so we're a lot of companies are not authorizing sponsorship, which I find I don't know if they've always not done that, but it just seems interesting that there's a lot of companies out there that are like, yeah, we're not going to sponsor you if you require a visa. And I don't know if that's because the government's requirements of like visas now are prohibitively expensive. Um, but yeah. Um, other than finding jobs and stuff, I've been playing a lot of Diablo 2. So that's another thing that I've been doing. So, but yeah, just it's OSINT. It's a job that I'm learning as I go along. We aren't normally searching for jobs on the regs, so um, it's something you learn by doing. And when you finally get good at it, you've got another job because that's when you know what you're doing right. So, and it's also helpful. So, like, I have a first level connection to the security leader there, Paul Tobias. So, um, I would reach out to Paul and say, "Hey, I'm going to apply for this position. I'd love to get your thoughts on this job. I can't afford to be like, oh, should I contact that person or whatever." Um, if you have a connection like that, um, reach out to them. Tell them you're doing that, and um, see if you can set up some time with them to talk about the position because they may get um, referral bonuses if they refer you to that position. So I have a couple of people that I know that are referring me for jobs that I've applied for. So I have a couple of things in the pipeline there. Unfortunately, being the holidays, everything's getting a little close, and anything like that's going to occur after the first of the year. So give me a second here. I hit refresh because I'm supposedly have a new network connection, but I would say yes. If you're looking for a job, don't be skittish about reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn or, um, you know, if it's a recruiter, hit up the recruiter. 100% hit the recruiter. Especially if it's like, oh, here's the hiring team. Meet the hiring team. Just fucking hit the recruiter and say, hey, I'm looking for a job. You're advertising for this job. Here's a good reason why I should be, why I should be considered for this role. Don't be timid because when you're timid, there's a phrase that I learned in my younger days, which I won't repeat here because it's just not nice, but about when you hesitate. Yeah. Um, so I just, you're going to have to be bold. You're going to put yourself out there. If you're not good at sales, you're going to get good at sales when you're selling yourself. Um, which is another reason I'm using AI to help with cover letters. I am putting cover letters anytime the opportunity shows up to add one. And I'm using AI to help me do that and draft those because, um, I usually have the job description and my CV in the prompt, and I ask it to, write a cover letter that doesn't suck, and no M dashes, no bolds, no something like that. So um, I try to, uh, keep it realistic. I do have to make some edits, but it sure, cuts down on the amount of time it takes to actually write a cover letter because I get paralysis on what I'm wanting to write. And I think I've mentioned that on LinkedIn too. It's like I'll sit at a blank page and I'm like, what do I want to say here? And then I'll ask the AI to give me a seed, if you will, like a seed crystal on a if you've seen the um, where's that video? there was there was a video. Yes, the super frozen bottles of Coke or whatever, and when they would hit it or they would tap the side of it, the ice crystal would form on the nucleation point on the side of the bottle, and you could see the ice spread throughout on a super chilled Coke bottle. So, um, yeah, you're gonna have to do that. The seeds from the AI help you build what it is you want to build. So, um, let me see. There were some stories I actually wanted to talk about. Let me see. There was a um, so chocolate coat forensics. I had blogged a couple of weeks ago, and I'd seen this, and I just hadn't had a chance to add to it because um, Miss Berlin and I had some things we wanted to talk about, but then this. So, um, Chocolate Code had created a framework for analyzing evidence in an incident response, with the idea that analysis without paralysis, right? Every time I finished, I immediately thought I need to get this documented. So they took the first step. Struggle to learn and teach others how to analyze and think through an investigation. Very important when you're doing incident response or forensics to understand the data and where that exists. um, However, resources seem to miss out on fundamental aspect of analysis, which is how it unfolds into the larger investigation. And so the adapt approach is approach, discovery, association, profile, and timeline. So set the stage before you rush in. It's about intent and organization. Approach, you define objectives, outline a plan, decide how and what evidence to capture. The goal is to avoid jumping in, which leads to miscontext and burnt out, right? Because it's like it's almost like I hate using the term biting the elephant one or eating the elephant one bite at a time, but in this case that's correct. Instead of trying to swallow the elephant whole, which can lead to problems and you're missing things like context, and there's just so much you think you have to do because you're looking at 10 different things at once, and you're like you can't think about 10 different things at once, so you run into problems with um, burnout and overwork and missing things, right? Good approach establishes what success looks like, asks the right questions, and creates a way to take notes you can maintain under pressure. It's less about tools and more about clarity and knowing where to look. Um, Discovery, gathering, and interpreting evidence. Systematic. Sorry, not systemic. Systematic interpretation of the available evidence sources. Collect what's relevant. Record your findings in a way that others can understand. So, analyze the PCAP file first. Then you analyze web application logs, or everything's in Splunk. So you want to make a KQL, not a KQL, but you would, a Splunk query looking for that specific language. Or if you're in, Azure, you're going to use KQL for threat anomaly detection or threat detection methods. Your notes are crucial and must ensure you capture what happened, where you saw it, and when. That goes back to the timeline thing, which is at the bottom, because discovery, when you discovered this thing, how you discovered this thing is important. Lucky Dak, sent your request on LinkedIn from Germany. Yes, you would get a job here right away. All security companies are looking for employees. I would love to move to Germany. As somebody, and thank you, Loki, for that thought. I will. If there was a remote job in Germany that would allow me to do that, and I've worked with, here you are. Hello. I have accepted your LinkedIn request. If it was remote in Germany, and oh no, I have to take a quarterly trip to Germany. Yeah, that would suck. Yeah, that would be terribly, terribly awful having to go to Germany. Oh no. I love travel. I love Europe. If we could afford to live in Europe, we would have gone and left the United States already. Um, but yeah, I apologize. I'm going to call you Loki because I don't want to mispronounce your first name there. But yeah, thank you for that, Loki Deck. I appreciate you. If you have anything interesting, I live on the west coast of the United States, so it's about an 8-hour time difference, I think, or 9-hour on a good day. So I had some of the people on my team used to work in the UK and Germany, so our stand-ups at 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the morning were because we couldn't, go past the end of their workday. Yeah, feel free to hit me up, or let's have a chat later if it fits for you. So, association, connecting events into a narrative. So this they're going to take. We talk about this in vulnerability management with the exploit chain. This is very similar, where you're going to the chain of vulnerabilities are now events. So, how did A become B, become C, become tear a bad thing, right? Work backwards. So, like, in a crime scene, because you're investigating a crime scene, right? Uh, in a manner of speaking, what led to the death? What led to the breach? What led to the vulnerability being exploited? Well, it was a service that was open, like with the Cisco stuff that I just talked about so many minutes ago. Port is open, something is running on that port, a service or something that allows for command injection. So you need to find the logs on the ASA or the iron port. You need to find the firewall logs that show the connection coming in. What is the A, the B, the C, the D that causes the body on the floor, or the crime scene, or the vulnerability, or the exploit to have occurred. It's a story, right? You're going to tell a story, beginning, middle, and end, right? And then the denouement. Um, you stack evidence side by side, events side by side, compare what fits, flags what doesn't, and then begin to see the chain of events. There might be red herrings. A good attacker is going to be like, look over here, while I do this thing over here, and I'm going to shiv you in the back. So you have to know, you have to separate the wheat from the chaff. You have to separate what is legitimate from what's not. And that's just, it takes time and it takes effort. I'm not good at that, probably. I'm out of practice, let's put it that way. But people who do it for a living, they're very good at that. They can analyze that quickly. The Cisco Talos folks who have worked on the threat actor stuff, they've got that down to an art, which is why if anybody from Cisco Talos is ever looking for a job as a threat intelligence person, you should probably hire those people without reservation. Add intelligence, sharpen the narrative. Profile introduces relevant knowledge without trying to be encyclopedic. You capture what is known about the behaviors and indicators you've observed. Utilize threat intelligence and existing documentation to answer whether we have seen this before, does it map to a common technique, and does it have any intelligence to change our interpretation. The point isn't to classify anything, but to give your analysis context from the outside, increase confidence, guide searches, and inform decisions. And again, I don't know how I ended up coming right back to this, but when we were talking about Gossie's, let me see, do I still have Gossie's post up here? No, let me see if I can. Oh, no, it's over here. Yeah, that was my E-Trade login. So we go back to Gossie's point here with the various bits here, and he mentions that they noticed this similarly happening with ASA backdooring a few months ago. So you go back, they're talking about the email client gateway stuff, but they also mentioned we saw similar IOCs, or we saw similar data or similar events when we were investigating the Cisco ASA vulnerabilities a couple of months ago. They're not saying that it was, it could be 9686. Somebody else could have employed the same type of things, but it's like, have we noticed this before? Let's go look. Okay, here's this attack invoked Aquashell. Okay, Aquashell has been used in other things that we've investigated. Okay, well that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a duck. But we're going to keep adding things to it. Oh well, okay. Well, we've also noticed a reverse SSH being used, which is also done by okay, we saw it with this investigation, so you can build that profile. You don't say that it is, obviously, Chinese Nexus based yet, but you can get closer and closer to saying, based on these 5 or 6 things, we're classifying this as potentially the same organization that did these attacks. And that's what you see in these blog posts, right? Where you say, tooling used by this such as Aqua Tunnel also aligns. See, they say also aligns with previously disclosed APT groups such as. they show that evidence factor, that method by which they're working through the methodology. There it is. Timeline: present the chain of events clearly. Every write-up that I've shown on this stream has a chain of events. This day we saw this. This day we saw this. You would have to show in your logs, these kinds of, on this date this happened, on on this date this time, this date this time, this date this time. You lay out the events in order, right? And so when your write-ups occur, you can say, this is what we observed. This is how we observed it. Sorry. Oh, okay. I'm getting so many more SMS texts now because every job that you apply to, they want you to include your phone number for SMS text messages because they already have it, right? Okay, so that's just garbage. Strong timeline is the backbone of your final report, shows progression, impact, and resolution without forcing the reader to wade through blocks of text, right? By this stage, you're no longer piecing things together, you're communicating what happened, right? You're creating the timeline, the chain of events, why, there was a dead body. This is the thing we noticed. We noticed, the blah, blah, blah. So it's like, this happened on this date, and you might actually have investigation. It's like, this thing occurred according to this log file. We noticed it 25 minutes later because of this alert that went off by our, threat intelligence, tooling, or we noticed odd behavior, or we noticed this error message that came up, which is terror bad, right? This is the thing that we realized, there's a problem. When you put the timeline in, not only are you going to put your artifacts, but you're going to put what the people did, right? How those people reacted, who was notified at that time. And they say, why does this work? It keeps you focused and consistent. It helps you avoid blind spots, reduce rework, and produce artifacts. Right. You should be one of the few things that I have kept from my career before I became technical. I love me some screenshots. I will screenshot the hell out of everything. If you talk to anybody I worked with in the last 5 years, one of the things they might say, and I would say probably with greater than 50% certainty, Brian, he does take him and make him some screenshots. I tell you, I enjoy, and my meme performances are pretty on spot too. But I tend to take screenshots of Slack conversations because those can go away, or those can be modified or edited. So if I'm talking with somebody about something, it's just easier for me to take a screenshot of that conversation and then paste it into whoever might be working with them in 12 hours or whatever. So I find screenshots to be very helpful for me. Keeping track of all of that stuff is, it could be a text file, it could be a JSON blob, it could be a document, it could be, whatever is a good way for you to document that timeline or to keep track of those artifacts is very important. And keep backups because bad things happen. You could accidentally delete a folder in a heat of a moment. So having some kind of way of keeping like a backup copy so you don't have to do that rework is very important. Especially because somebody might want to look at the artifacts. Having them in some place that's easy to get to as well is going to be helpful. But consider this like a doctoral thesis where you're going to want to keep a backup copy and a backup copy of the backup copy, and that evidence would also need to be maybe tamper-proof or in some place that can be compared again to make sure that it wasn't tampered with after it was collected. Sometimes you might end up having to deal with e-discovery, so make sure you're tracking that information. I don't know if that shows up in here at all or whatever, but it's an important thing. So in the next coming posts, I'll dive deep into each step, showing each practical objective and approach, structure, notes for discovery. I don't know if the person did this or not. Oh, it looks like they did. Okay, so evidence collection. So they do go through and okay, so they do have a list. Part 3, Part 4, Part 5, intelligence correlation, Part 6, and then reporting is Part 7. Very cool. Okay, so they did this over the course of, oh, wait. Okay, so yeah, they finished this in late 2023, but it was, I mean, uh, I haven't actually seen I mean, outside of the GCIH stuff, which is talking about how you stop an incident from happening or recovering from that, like a business continuity disaster recovery. I haven't seen a lot of discussion other than something like this on how to collect the information while you're doing the PICERL side of those things. When you're investigating these things, you need to have some kind of methodology by which you're doing that. And I didn't know if something like that exists, so I found this quite interesting. Let me go grab. Let me scroll backwards here. Oh, well, okay. So okay, so this is the first. Okay, it's weird. So this is November 30th, 2025. Looks like they went back and I'm not sure how all that works. They went back in time and put these things up. um, so yeah, there we go. Paste. There we go. Uh, but yeah, I mean, obviously they went through all of the different bits there. So thought it was weird how they opened those things up like that. Oh, um, I found this on Reddit, and this is a list of mind maps, which is various commands you can use for. And I love mind maps because it is a nice way of keeping track of these things. But there's a mind map here that shows you, and I'm gonna shrink this up a little bit. Each one of these is a like no credentials for like Active Directory mind map for scanning the network, finding the DC IP using various commands like nmap, if you have, or various tools, nmap, something called NXC. Um, oh, netexec. Okay, sorry. It used to be called crackmap exec, but now they've forked it off and it's now called netexec. But there's various commands that you can use nmcli to find IP addresses of various things using different commands, depending on if you're on a Windows box or Linux box or Mac box or whatever. Um, Zone transfers using dig, netexec, and enum for Linux to find anonymous or guest shares on SMBs. All of these commands are great because it's in one place. And I don't know about you, but my brain doesn't keep track of every switch and everything that exists there. Um, so these are good ways of keeping track or attempting certain things like Kerberos brute forcing. So here's Kerbrute, which is a pre-auth brute forcing for Kerberos if you need a tool that's noisy and will brute force your Kerberos. Um, some of these may no longer be applicable. I don't know how old this article. It says 2025.03, so 0.03 could be March. So, um, but yeah, there's different bits here. Man in the middle, relays. Let me scroll over, but it's a number of different things, different tools. There's Bloodhound links. Here's a link to Ping Castle, AD Miner. There's another one. And there's so many GitHub repos, so you're going to build up your list of tools where you may not even need something like a Kali anymore to be able to do these things. Um, and you're, going to pick up AD Miner's an Active Directory auditing tool that leverages Cypher queries to analyze data from Bloodhound graphs, Neo4j. Detailed listings of identified weaknesses. So yeah, there's a ton of information on this that you can use to keep track. And maybe you just, forgot during an engagement what command you need from nmap or cert IPY or something like that. Like if you're looking for specific CVEs, proxy not shells or something like that. ACL or ACE permissions, being able to use DC sync, yeah, or pie whisker or something like that. So yeah, cool little mind map to be able to pick those things out and SCCM recon. So there's different tools for that. It's just really great mind map for finding all that information. So, um, take advantage of these tools as I find them. I'm on the Blue Team Reddit. I'm on the NetSec Reddit, Red Team Reddit, uh, Cybersecurity InfoSec. All of those have different Reddits that you can follow. And sometimes people just drop tools or handy little hints or something. I think I actually found this one though on LinkedIn, which surprisingly effective. So, uh, I'm actually doing pretty good today. Cool. Let me see how far over to this. Damn, thing keeps going, doesn't it? Let me see what's going on up here. By the way, if you played Diablo 2, I've been playing Diablo 2 just to pass the time and to do something a little different and take my mind off of the abjectly crushing job market finding thing. I do that a couple hours in the evening. So, but yeah, they're doing terror zones. So if you know what that means, then you should be excited and gleeful. And they've upped the magic find 250%. So if you don't have any magic find in your character, you automatically get 250% magic find, which is pretty good for finding if you're wanting to find kit for your characters and stuff. So I have this one bookmarked, so I'll close that one. This was an opinion article from December 8th. It's on CSO Online, which I find myself looking for more senior type articles to read about, to kind of keep a bead on. As I'm trying to find more senior positions, I should be looking towards people who are in senior positions for how they're thinking and that. So they talk about chasing, when security resilience, cheaper isn't always better, right? Chasing the cheapest vendors feel great until a breach wipes out savings. Real wins come when procurement bakes resilience into every decision. I found this, it made me start thinking about resiliency because, we thought, oh, the cloud is going to be resilient, right? We need DDoS protection, so let's get something that's going to be resilient. But we've seen in the last, couple months, if you're in US East 1 or if you're using Cloudflare, it's not a good month for you. Not a good couple of months for you or your customers. When the things that you're using for resiliency aren't resilient either, you run into a problem there with dependency issues. And unfortunately, I think the one for Cloudflare was a React issue, or it was a vulnerability issue that they had to patch. Why procurement prioritizes cost above all? Because you're saving budget, right? Procurement follows the incentives you give it, and most incentives point in one direction. You cut the costs. Board demands quick wins. Shareholders watch the quarterly margins. Procurement KPIs are negotiated savings, supplier discounts, and contract efficiency. The one-dimensional scoreboard. No one hands out trophies for resilience, right? Bigger, faster, cheaper. Pick one, and it's always cheaper, right? Cyber resiliency rarely appears on procurement dashboards. A vendor offering cheaper cloud storage will beat a competitor with stronger cyber safeguards simply because cheaper on paper. I kind of agree with that one. I have thoughts about when vendors, you're going to pick a cheaper vendor because maybe they add more cost when they include things like MFA or cyber, security safeguards. They add more, would you like this thing, or would you like this thing with security bolted on? And the difference is $3 more a seat or a license versus the one that doesn't have security. Your procurement team is going to pick the cheaper version because they don't think about, well, we don't need all the bells and whistles. We don't need that. Yeah. I mean, I get it. The vendor offering cheaper cloud storage will be the competitor with stronger safeguards because the company that put the pricing for the more secure option, I would say, did it wrong. I don't know. What does everybody think about that? But when you see something like, costs $39.99 for this, but if you want OAuth flows and second factor auth and everything, it's $49.99. Which one are you going to pick? Well, you know, your brain is going to be like, ooh, cheaper, better. Cheaper is not better. Cheaper is less secure. Depends on what you need. I'm interested in that because uh, I feel like that there's a missed opportunity here. Companies that are making you pay more for security are shooting themselves in the foot because it costs them more development time to do that. So they're trying to recoup costs. But as people who are wanting a solution, we need to make sure our procurement teams are aware that we want things like 2FA and OAuth flows and things that will make us more secure. So we should bypass the ones that are cheaper that don't have those things, even though it will save us time and effort. Procurement operates with blind spots. A buyer can compare unit costs of servers, but rarely the supplier's incident response maturity. Without cyber expertise at the table, decisions default to the cheapest bidder. Yeah, I did quite a bit of vendor management from both sides of things when I was at CrowdStrike. When they would want to buy our product, our endpoint product at the time in 2017, I think we had a handful of things. We would be asked for questionnaires, SIG questionnaires, in this case, to kind of gauge our infosec maturity or security maturity. Conversely, when we would partner with a third party or we'd want to bring in a third party vendor for integration or a bell or a whistle, or we just want to use their software, like Jira, for instance. Jira came up quite a bit this week, as a matter of fact. We would ask them for their SIG, and they would give us one that would be true. And I'm not saying Jira didn't give us a correct questionnaire. I'm just saying trust but verify, right? Some companies will, just like with compliance, the rules as written versus the rules as intended, right? Hidden trade-offs with resilience. Don't savings don't erase risk. They shift it, right? It's always a transfer, right? You're buying, you're not going to buy off risk like that. What looks efficient today becomes exposed tomorrow. Cyber resilience is often the first casualty. And I think that's important. What looks like efficiency today, or what looks like security today, may not be security in the future. You kind of want to have an idea of where you're going with your roadmap, because what if your product integrates with their product and it works great now, but it won't work that way in 6 months? You want to go back and have to tell the company that you're about to bring on, hey, we need this feature in 6 months. You're only one data point, and if you're the only person clamoring for this product feature and oh yeah, we're gonna get that to you, sales guy or their technical account manager's like, yeah, we're gonna get that for you, and you're one of 300, 3,000 people, and you're the only data point that's wanting that, you're not gonna get that feature in 6 months. Now, if you're one of 10 that they have as a company, they may be more willing to listen to you. But yeah, what you have to make sure that they are able to respond to your asks, or they can extend themselves easily. I think that's probably an unwritten rule that will their solution work in 2 years? Their solution won't work in 2 years. Should you be using that tool? Are they going to listen to your asks and capitulate, or not capitulate, but are they going to work with you and collaborate with you? Collaborate was what I was thinking of. Do they care about your business enough to want to add the features that you're asking for, or the capabilities, or the ability to integrate with this thing? Uh, maybe maybe that's something that you need to think about. Resiliency is also like how easily you can shift if that goes bad, and maybe that's in this article here as well. If you're using an Oracle database, or you're a solution like Oracle, you're not just going to rip out Oracle and put something else in. So, how resilient is that if all of a sudden Oracle doesn't do what you're wanting it to do, or the solution isn't, you can't easily rip and replace that once it's been purchased? Um, a lot of these things are a one-way door. So, like if you buy a brand new ticketing system that rhymes with Mira, uh, and it won't do what you want after X number of months or years, or it becomes cumbersome to address or fix or um, maintain. Uh, how easily are your organization able to rip and replace, or modify it's themselves, or create workarounds? Supply chain fragility. Let's see what they say, the hidden trade-offs here. Fragility, the thrive on concentration. When procurement consolidates digital services into a single provider, save money. A breach can have a ripple effect across your operations. That's vendor lock-in, right? Or vendor ecosystem. If everything is a if if you're using Teams and Microsoft Office and Windows, and all of a sudden there's something that affects all of Azure, and you're down and unable to work, that's a problem. Um, Considering numerous businesses tied to a single compromised cloud vendor, aka AWS, which can be cheaper until an outage or ransomware brings them all down. Um, Vendors often chosen for cost, not defense in depth. The affordable software supplier may lack basic monitoring or encryption. When attackers compromise them, your systems become collateral damage, right? So, um, yeah, procurement saved $1, but opened a door for hackers. That's where you probably need to have regular discussions. It feels like you need to have regular discussions with your vendors if they're going to be implementing some brand new piece of technology. Maybe perhaps you have something in your contract is like, hey, we're going to upgrade to this new cloud provider. Okay, well, our third party provider is now using a different cloud than us, and they're going to be storing our data in their cloud, or they're going to be using our data in some way in an AI that we didn't know about, or they're upgrading to, you know, some sort of what they think is a best in breed. Is their best in breed your definition of that? Very much like software module dependency. How deep do the layers go? Is it a log4j thing? So if I bring in an HVAC vendor and they're putting our data inside of a Excel spreadsheet and leaving it on a desktop somewhere, and somebody, yeah, I mean, how far down the vendor line do you need to go, right, to understand who is using that data, and who is your third party, that kind of thing. Cheap IT providers rarely build resilience into contracts. They don't maintain redundant data centers. They don't run breach simulations. They don't guarantee recovery in hours, only in days, right? And that comes down to money. Is it 8x5 or is it 24/7? You're going to pay more for 24/7. Do we really need 24/7, or can we go with 8x5? You can go with 8x5 until you really need somebody at 10 o'clock at night on a Friday afternoon or Friday evening. And then, oh, yeah, we're not going to have anybody until Monday. So, you'll do 8x5 until you need 7x24, and then you'll be wondering why you didn't get 7x24. Cultural risks. Transactional relationship kills transparency. Vendors under constant price pressure often fail to promptly disclose near misses. They fear contract termination. That delay costs you valuable hours in containment. Collaboration in crisis requires trust, not a signed contract. Yes. Yes. SolarWinds breach, Kaseya, Colonial Pipeline hack, digital fragility in COVID-19 times, automotive chip shortages. Yeah, SolarWinds, Kaseya, There's open source versions of that. I would say things like React and Log4j were probably resiliency issues as well, right? Um, in terms of we use that, it got breached, um, you know. And I actually had another article. Where is that it? No, that was. Oh, here you go. So I was actually going to talk about this with Miss Berlin, and I think I still might, but I'm just going to give my thoughts here. Um, let's say your resiliency didn't come to fruition and one of your vendors had been breached or your third parties. I found this article and I was like, that's very interesting. What do you do if one of your vendors has had a, an ugly time? And what do you do to deal with that? And so here's the article for that. There we go. All right, and paste. There we go. This time change thing is really fucking with me because it looks like it's about 5 o'clock at night and it's only about 4:30. So, um, so we have due diligence as a company. We care about our reporting and all that, but your vendors may not be under the same scrutiny, right? So your third party's been breached. Like you had SolarWinds. Do you still have SolarWinds after the breach? And what happens to that relationship once that has happened? I don't think I've ever been on that kind of discussion before, where it's like, oh, it's SolarWinds, right? Um, what does that look like? You know? So I saw this article. I don't remember exactly where I got it from. That just shows you, I have 3 different browser windows with about 25 different, tabs on them. Um, so skeptical of my team's decision to rely on a third-party risk assessment of an entity that was breached, especially since they handled the post-incident breach analysis for reconnection. Externally, I need to explain the decision-making process to auditors and regulators depending on the damages. Right, so your third party is breached, but you're using them, so now they're your problem. Whether or not it's an SEC kind of reporting kind of thing, or maybe it's the trust in your own customers, right? Why would you use Joe Bob Billy's monitoring service when you should have been using, you know, going back to what? Going back to, no, not this, not that, you know, cheap procurement, right? Why did you pick them? Why did your procurement team pick them? Did you give them good enough requirements? Was there anybody that actually fit the bill for your requirements? Yeah, we took them because they were the best of the worst, right? We asked for 15 things. We interviewed, half a dozen teams. They could only give us 12. So we picked the one that could fulfill 12 of those things. Unfortunately, the 3 that we didn't get from them was security related. And we thought that that was an okay risk at the time. So that's where you would have like risk acceptance from leadership. Hey, we can pick this one. They're the best of the worst, or the best of all of them, but they don't have these 3 things. So we're going to need to mitigate those risks somehow. But like we said, uh, you got breached, right? So the vendor walks back in the room, feeling like a sailor returning from a storm with a cracked mast and a smile that says all is well. No seasoned captain will buy it. The breach changes the relationship. Yes, of course it does. You need to see the knots they tied, the planks they replaced, the repairs that need to be inspected for quality. I think Okta was another one of these, like the Okta breach, right? If you're still using Okta after they got breached, what did they do to allay your fears? What did they do to generate, like, we're not gonna, we're fixing what caused the issue and it's not going to happen again, or well, I guess they could promise that, but yeah. First proof is the post breach incident analysis. Okay, so you would want, going back to the incident response adapt thing, you're going to want some kind of write up from them, from hopefully the adapt, I didn't really do it this way, but it happened in a logical, here's the adopt framework for evidence and IR. So you're going to need this report that is generated using the adapt framework to help in your post breach analysis trust building exercise with your customers downstream. Um, I I'm actually quite pleased at myself for having done that in that logical order. That's kind of nuts. A compromise assessment follows. This is the search for stowaways. Attackers who slip through leave small signs behind, a strange footprint, a loose board, a familiar pattern in the dust. A vendor avoids this search and is not to be that avoids this search is not to be trusted again. So I would imagine part of the incident handling or timeline report or post breach would be like, this is our due diligence that we did to make sure that we've cleaned everything up. They're out of our systems. They are, we've patched the gaping hole that allowed them to get in through our secure email server on Cisco Box. And we promise not to do it again. Or we've nuked that service so it no longer exists, and we're moving to something else that is probably a best in breed or the cheapest version of whatever it is. the cheapest thing that we could find that procurement would allow us to buy. Forensic analysis report is a level deeper when you bring someone in that does not owe the vendor anything, so a third party. So when a breach happens, like SolarWinds, they brought in, they always bring in Mandiant to deal with that. So this would be part of the forensic analysis report. So they handle the incident response, but they also would do a forensic analysis to ensure that that everything has been done right and is finished. And then a remediation plan. This is more than a promise to patch holes. It should read like a blueprint with names, dates, and clear measures of progress. They hand you a plan full of warm language and empty lines. They're giving you hope instead of work. And hope never fixed a broken system. That is telling. That is telling. Policies and procedures need a fresh coat of paint, right? A breach or an incident response should always have some kind of lessons learned, whether it be a change in process. There's going to be a change, right? You're either not going to be using that service anymore, you're going to be enabling this service, or you're going to be changing a configuration in your architecture. There's going to be a change. There's going to be an update in how things are done by people, or it's going to be an automated process now because we can't trust a human to do it efficiently. There's always going to be a fix when an incident happens or a breach happens. This is the lessons learned, or the things that we learned that we're not going to do anymore. Fresh coat of paint, evidence they actually built something new, right? Not descriptions, not assurances. You want to see the upgraded locks, the strengthened gates, right? What was changed, what was fixed, what was process was updated, what automation occurs now. What monitoring has been put in place, what rule sets have been put in place. Oh, they hired a new MSSP after they got rid of Joe Bob Billy's MSSP, that kind of thing. Security posture should shift to breach exposes where controls failed. If they claim full compliance without showing how they reassess those controls, something feels off, right? So if they're having to have a SOC 2 or some kind of GDPR or some kind of compliance requirements every year, they should have to disclose them. An independent security assessment is the real test. This is the rival captain that boards the ship with no need to flatter anyone. They tug at lines, open boxes, and call out problems plainly. Vendor that fears this visit is telling you the repairs will not survive daylight. Yes, if it is such that, before you can trust that vendor again, that you're going to need an independent third party, you also need to make sure that that independent third party doesn't suck too. And that's going to cost you some money if it's really a vendor that you really want to stay with, or if the vendor's like, we're going to use, Billy Jim Bob's, pen testing service, who have like 2 people in their company, and they've been around for about a year and a half, would find somebody a little more reputable. Or I would suggest to that vendor that they need to find somebody more reputable for us to have that level of trust. I'm not saying that those 2 people probably wouldn't do a good job. I'm just thinking maybe you would want somebody with a bit more, I don't want to say skin in the game, but a bit more talent, or an organization that would be, I don't want to say Ernst and Young or whatever. That, I mean, it is an option if you want to go that route, but I hate to throw out names like a Black Hills or a Trusted Sec or something, but you want you want people who are known in the industry, or you want people who would be willing to stake their own reputations on that. And um, if your vendor is, yeah, we took some stuff out of scope because we didn't think that was needed, and you should expect a pen test or a security assessment from them. I don't call them pen tests anymore. I call them security assessments, and then this person has the right idea with that. Continuous monitoring is another anchor. Without that vendor just hoping to stay calm, you want to see the tools, the alerts, the crew assigned to watch the horizon. That's all part of the changes. What changes are they making? Are they adding additional monitoring? Are they doing that? You need to update your vendor risk management. Maybe they were already at a medium, like medium security risk. They've been breached. Now they're a high, right? How do you get that back down? Like, what is? We need to have requirements for them to be able to gain our trust back, quote unquote. Um, so, what did SolarWinds do to get back in the good graces of all of their customers? Or did they just send a, hey, here's, we're really sorry. It was a sophisticated attack, as mentioned by Mandiant. We feel really, really bad, and we won't do it again. No, no, I wouldn't buy that shit. Um, of course, the other thing is, what if they're, you've already spent 100 and X number of dollars on them, and you're stuck, right? You can't rip out your SolarWinds easily. That's going to cost you a lot of time and effort on your own part. So there's going to have to be some kind of remuneration, or, hmm, you know, maybe we don't pay for SolarWinds next year. Maybe that is the reputational risk that we talk about post breach for these things that we never see, right? What's the time and effort and cost of doing this right here, this bit, all of this additional bits? What did that cost them? Communication plan. When trouble returns, and it always does, you know how fast the vendor will speak up. Try to plug leaks in silence, hoping no one notices. Others call you early before the damage spreads. You want the second kind, the vendor who will raise the flag before the ship takes on water. Right. Yep. Meanwhile, your leadership team is likely looking at you as a barrier to business. You will have to explain multiple times that hooking up for fun isn't going to work, and you're likely in personal liability land. This is where CEOs like to say they're the great deciders right up until the trial. Um, yeah, and I guess that's just I think that may be a reason why things like CISOs don't last as long as they do, because um, you're a barrier to business at this point. It's like they just want to get back to work, but there's real problems here, right? And you're going to cause other issues. Um, you're going to have to slow things down, or you're going to have to deal with this thing over here while you're still handling your own business over here. All these documents do not magically restore trust. They give you clues. They reveal whether the vendor faced the breach with honest eyes or tried to paint over the damage. A breach can teach an organization how to grow stronger. It can also expose that they never took security seriously. Your job is to look past the words and decide you're dealing with. I want to know this person because I'd love to have them on. Well, it says him, Sam, and he appears to have a gray beard like myself. But it would be interesting to talk to them about this and understand. I feel like Sam has lived through this, right? And it would be interesting to talk with them about their experience and how they dealt with that. But I imagine some of this would be over like drinks at Black Hat or something. We wouldn't be able to do this, in a more formal setting like this. But anyway, um, it was interesting. I didn't actually know that we would have this progression on these articles. It didn't mean it to hit like that. It was kind of cool. Um, oh, this is an older article. This was published on the 3rd, but apparently somebody's hard drive got wiped without permission by an AI. Um, oops, my bad. Yeah, you cannot express how sorry you am because you were just doing what you were told to do. A developer using anti-gravity, which is Google's AI-powered agentic developer environment, decided it had, discovered it had deleted the user's entire D drive without his permission. According to the post on Reddit and the YouTube video they shared, they've been using it to build a small app when the incident occurred. I do want to watch this, but let me do it without the video here. So, oh, it's 11 minutes for F's sake, man. Let me see here. I'm not gonna watch this 11-minute video. I would, but it would not make for good stuff. Users in the midst of troubleshooting the app they were working on, as part of the process, decided to restart the server. To do that, they needed to delete the cache, and they asked the AI to do it for them. Oh, gods. Okay. After the AI executed the command, they discovered their entire D drive had been wiped clean. What's on their D drive? I haven't had a D drive since Windows 7. I guess if you have multiple hard drives in your computer, but I haven't had a multiple hard drive system since not on a Windows box. On a Linux box, I've had one with multiple drives in it, but I haven't had a C and a D drive forever. Hey, so I'm freaking out that my D drive's been zonked by this AI. The person actually had the wherewithal to ask, "Did I give you permission to delete all the files in my D drive?" You ran rmdir appears to have incorrectly targeted the root of your D drive instead of a specific project folder. I'm deeply, deeply sorry. This is a critical failure. Oh my God. Okay. That is hilarious. Um, I've seen other examples of this where I don't want all that. Come on, man. Jesus Christ. That is a long ass URL. Okay. Wow. Okay. So one thing I've learned that today, um, there's a URL limit on Twitch. You cannot put a URL that long on there. So this is garbage. Okay, so I will see if I can put that in the. Oh, sorry, YouTube doesn't allow for that long a URL. So there we go. That's a long ass URL there. Um, Let me see. Mishandled the system because the command used the quiet flag. It bypassed the recycle bin and permanently deleted the files. Holy crap. Um, well, I guess the developer will not be asking them to clear the cache for you. Instead, it will spend the time to do a couple clicks and not wipe their D drive. Hope they didn't have anything important on there. The ad then suggested steps to help recover the user data, such as stopping the use of the affected drive and employing data recovery or hiring a professional to fix the issue. Wow. Dee. Yeah, and they warned users to be careful not to use turbo mode, at least in the beginning. And despite catastrophic failure, they still love Google and all of its products. They just didn't expect it to release a program that can make a massive error such as this. I remember reading another news article where there was an AI that was asked to do something, and in order to do its job, it ended up modifying some config files and crashing the system because it could not do its job with current permissions. But it only had one goal in mind, was to do this thing. And to get there, it had to modify config files so that it could effectively bypass the permissions issues. We didn't tell it to do that, but it was thinking independently of for itself. That is problematic because it doesn't care to stop when it runs into an issue like that. It just wants to get the thing done, just like this. It definitely deleted the cache files on the D drive. It also deleted everything else. I'm not sure why it was told to use the quiet flag. Seems like there should be some kind of parameters in there where it would just say delete the files, but don't do it with the quiet flag or bypass the recycling bin. I would imagine if we watched the video, it would be like delete the cache files, but uh, you know, it wanted to be extra, extra certain that it deleted those cache files. That's what it is. Yeah. um, let's see what. Oh, so I have one other thing from Tom's Hardware, and this is from the 8th, so that just shows you how old these articles are. Um, there was a KVM, this nice little KVM right here. Apparently has an undocumented microphone, and because it has a network connection, it was sending out information to China. Uh, but many of the security issues are now addressed, updated as of whenever. So, but this was something that always I want to say I was paranoid about, but when I would go to hotel rooms when I was traveling on business, they have they now have like USB ports on the side of like where the big light bars or something are in the hotels, and I didn't buy into this the Brian Krebs thing of the juice jacking where you could plug into a weird USB port, and of course your phone is now connected to some computer and it's going to download all the shit in there. That was at airports, and it was to power up your device or to charge your device. This one I always had kind of an issue with because there was network connections, like data ports or something like that, and I always was wondering, and I don't know who else had done it, but people would plug into those Ethernet ports, and I always wondered what was that connected to on the back end, and what was potentially being able to listen in. I was at that level of paranoia. But this thing, about $35 to $70, that's a hell of a range uh, for remote device management. And you plug in, it's got a USB-C, looks like here on the side, so you would plug it in to the computer and then you could do stuff. And like a small Raspberry Pi that does things. Um, has an IP address on the network. The looks like it has a monitor output of 1920 by 1080. The stream is 0 frames per second and quality is middle. Oh, I don't know what that means. Um, so it offered HDMI capture, HID emulation, remote power control, browser-based access to connect to PC. But it also had, oh, they've unboxed it. So here's the microphone here. Okay. Encryption key used to protect login passwords is hard-coded and identical across all devices. Jesus. According to the researcher, this had to be explained to developers multiple times before they acknowledged the issue. Okay. Um, Nano KVM's network behavior raised further questions. It routed DNS queries through Chinese servers by default, made routine connections to SciPed infrastructure to fetch updates, and a closed source binary component. I'm, I'm I don't want to say I'm less concerned about that, but they do need to do OTAs, right? So you're going to be connecting to their infrastructure. Hey, is there an update? Hey, is there an update? Hey, is there an update? Yes, there's an update. Pull the update down and apply it. Um, I, I have less of an issue with that one, unless they were touting it as an open source component. I can see why they might use a closed source binary component. The fact that they have a microphone on there, I don't know if the microphone was powered up. Let me see. Early units arrived with a preset password and open SSH access. Right, the web interface lacked basic protections, had CSRF issues. Sure, that's I'm not surprised by that. Um, had an undocumented microphone that could be activated over SSH. Okay, so because there's a hard-coded password, preset password, and open SSH access, it could, somebody who found that there's a preset password there, could SSH to those boxes and activate the microphones, which would allow them to listen in on conversation. These are probably boards that are fairly generic or OEM boards that are repurposed for something. They just happened to pick one that had a microphone on it on the board. Yeah, I don't understand that. Hmm. Okay. Well, somebody thought it was a good idea, I guess. Um, yeah. man, I mean, how often are you going to tear these things down, and where could these things be used? I mean, if you could use these in a data center, that's not a good thing. Uh, and it was only because the people tore these things down to find out what was going on in there. I don't even see the microphone. Where is this? I guess it's that little hole right there. Because I was thinking maybe they were pointing at the dip switches, but the dip switches aren't activated. So I'm assuming it must be this little hole right here. It it's gotta okay, so sorry. I'm a geezer font size here. I don't know how much audio could be transmitted through this heavy, well, through the plastic. I mean, unless the microphone was exposed, I would love to understand if they actually got some meaningful recording out of that. I'm not saying it isn't true. The microphone could be turned on. It says could be. I don't see they say they actually did. Even if they did activate it, what did the audio sound like? I mean, did you have to be like right up on the thing and say rah 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 rah? Could you actually hear that, or could you have a normal conversation like this and it's like my microphone right here? Um, let's see. Talk about any of that at all? Okay, so this is a microphone is not documented in materials, yet the operating system includes ALSA tools such as AMX. Sure, it just uses a typical Linux build, which has everything in the world plus dog on it. Um, I mean, you install Linux and you're going to get Apache web server. You're going to get little fucking LibreOffice when you install anything. Even the smaller versions like Alpine and stuff still have sound drivers and stuff that can be installed. You're using a Linux kernel. Unless you're using a custom Linux kernel, you're going to get every driver under the sun, right? Um, Thankfully, because Nano KVM is nominally open source, community members have begun porting alternative Linux distros. Great, great. First on Debian and later on Ubuntu, reflashing requires opening the case and writing a new image to the internal micro SD, but early builds already support SciPeed's modified KVM code. Physically removing the mic is possible, though the component's size and placement make it a fiddly job without magnification. SciPeed has since addressed many of the security concerns around the device. However, the general consensus is that users should flash these devices to custom Linux distros to potentially mitigate issues. Mostly the OpenSSH, the hard-coded encryption keys, and hard-coded credentials and stuff. Okay, so the user did demonstrate audio that could be recorded and exfiltrated with minimal effort. Streaming the audio in real time would require only modest additional scripting. Okay, so okay, I would. Hmm, okay, I thought that was a link to the actual audio files. The researcher demonstrated the audio maybe with the case open or with the case closed. I don't know. But it's cool. It's good to see that they're adding alternative Linux distros. I would hope that it was some kind of custom kernel that would not load any kind of audio drivers to begin with. But if you have a package manager, you're going to be able to load whatever you want. So you're going to have that issue. Yeah, if you're buying these things, hopefully you're not using them in a critical operation. I wouldn't hold my breath. I assume some people are. Um, but yeah, I mean, let me see what they got going on over here. Okay, so they have a USB, no, they have a PCIe card that you can use for the same thing. Oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder if it has a microphone on it too. I don't know. Maybe. To see this, I don't want to say this would be worse, but it's a computer on a card, right? And it's in a PCIe slot, and it will basically hook up to the back plane of your system there. So, um, wow. It's kind of cool. Reminds me of the ILOM cards that you used to get in HP servers, or what is that other server? Dell used to have those as well, like the power on systems where you SSH to it and you could power on or power off the device that way without having to be in a remote place. I actually had one on a server one time when I was at home. because it's powered on even when the server's powered off. So it was like a remote turn on thing or a wake on LAN kind of thing. Oh, interesting. Anyway, well, I'm glad my half a dozen news articles kind of fit together, except for the last two here, um, about incident response and forensics and timelining and vendor apologies once they've been breached or whatever. So I'm gonna go. I can't guarantee I'm gonna be on the rest of the week. I know I have an interview tomorrow with another organization. Um, and then tomorrow is also the streamathon. Let me. If you are watching this on the 18th, there's a streamathon, 12-hour live telethon with the Lima Charlie folks. Which, if you watch the Lima Charlie show, Defender Fridays, I was on that last Friday. That was easily one of the more nerve-wracking things that I've ever had to do, and it was only 30 minutes. I'd like to thank the folks that allowed me to come on and talk about bug bounties and vulnerability management. They're doing donations. They will be doing donations for the Diana Initiative, Mental Health Hackers, which Miss Berlin, Amanda, runs, her organization, Sober and Cyber, which is a safe, supportive space for those in recovery or seeking sober connections in the industry. There are a lot of major conferences where it's like, we're going to do things where you don't have to drink. And actually, the one they did at DEF CON was pretty awesome. I heard a lot of good things about that one. Black Girls Hack, which is another one that's really close to my heart. They create opportunities and training for folks. It says Black Girls Hack, but it's for all Black women and girls entering and thriving in cybersecurity. And Women's Society of Cyber Jiu-Jitsu, empowering women with skills, support, and opportunities needed to succeed in cybersecurity. That's a 12-hour event, starts at 6 a.m. Pacific time, goes to 6 p.m. Pacific time, I think. And yeah, it'll be online. I assume. Streamathon care. Let me see. Cyber Security Cares Holiday Streamathon. So go to cybersecurity-cares.com, which I will put in the chat here and in YouTube. There we go. You can go check that out and watch the streamathon. I think it will be on, it's going to be on YouTube. You go right there and it says watch the streamathon. It'll start on YouTube. And I have been asked to join it at some point. So I will probably pop in. I'll see when Miss Berlin's going to do it. I have a job interview around this 1 o'clock Pacific, but I'm hoping that I can join for at least a little bit during that time, and try to help out and support where I can. So yeah, a lot of good organizations are going to help out there. Panopticy, Security, Tynes, Stand Up For Me, Simply Cyber, Lima Charlie, and Cyber Threat Intelligen, and Higgins Cybersecurity Consulting. So those are the organizations that are helping, and the companies that are helping with that. So hope all of you can take some time to watch that and watch the content. And if you see me, say wave and say hi, or say you heard about it on the show here. And hope we'll get to see each other this week. I don't know about next week. Maybe that'll be a little weird with all the short week, but we'll see what's up. Okay. I'm going to take care. Hope you take care, and I'll see you all very soon. Okay. All right. Take care.